It's the all-new J-Mac News Show.
You haven't heard the news until you've heard J-Mac.
On KSL News Radio.
Good afternoon. Thank you once again for joining us today. My name is Jay McFarland. Call me J-Mac. This is the J-Mac News Show. Now starting Monday through Friday on KSL News Radio at 12:30, right in the middle of your lunch break. So I hope you'll tune in. We started off every day with the J-Mac News Attack. You'll have to tune in at 12:30 to figure out what that means. In the meantime, I wanted to dive into this story. You saw it on KSL 5. Hour-long response times plaguing the Salt Lake City Police Department. We've all been there. It's like we don't want a police officer until we really need a police officer. And then when we really need a police officer, we want them there now. And when you're facing wait times that could be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, you can understand how that could be infuriating and might get in the way of justice. So what I wanted to do is bring in KSL News investigative reporter, our good friend of the show, Debbie Dujanovic. Thank you for joining us, Debbie.
Thank you, and congratulations on this new format.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Thank you. I think the majority of the people are liking it. I got to throw in some tech news here and there or people are going to go crazy. Tell us, first of all, how did you key in on the fact that this was happening, that there were these possible long wait times with Salt Lake City Police?
I have been obviously a reporter in this market
Yeah.
for a really long time, so I have a lot of contacts, and I've known for a number of years that the patrol division of the Salt Lake City Police Department, there were questions about whether the staffing levels were really what they needed to be for the officers who are actually responding. I'm not talking about those overseeing and supervisors and captains, the officers, the boots on the ground.
Yes.
Because patrol is the backbone of police organizations. You can't do follow-up work if you didn't have a patrol officer there to take an initial report. So I had clued in on this actually a couple of years ago, but then as I started to ask around again after I recently did a story on the 911 call center here in Salt Lake City last fall, it seemed to me that there were other problems that still actually had been lingering for a number of years within the patrol division, which was they just don't have enough staff, people assigned to the patrol division who are the first responders, who respond when you call in a suspicious vehicle parked in your neighborhood, who respond when you call in because there's a suspicious person knocking at your door, when you've had a package theft, when you have things that may not be considered a priority one call, which would be, a robbery or a shooting. And they do a good job of getting to those quickly. But all those other calls get pushed down the list. And when you only have, and I'm not kidding when I tell you, 4 officers on patrol on the whole west side of town.
Wow.
Any given day at times as I was documenting the story. Or maybe 15 officers for the entire Salt Lake City area. It's a 110 square mile city. It's huge. So they're running from call to call to call to call to call. And what does that do? Well, that means that you have to wait longer and longer and longer.
Right. In fact, you spoke with Michael Millard, president of the Salt Lake Police Association, and that's exactly what he said.
It's call to call to call, so we don't have a lot of time.
I guess my first question is, you looked at response times. Did your investigation find that there are a lot of really long or excessive wait times? Yes.
And I have to hand it to the new chief of police, Mike Brown. When I went to interview him last Friday, when he was still the interim chief, he made no bones about it. He said, so you're not questioning what I found is true? Nope, I understand. And that is one of the first things he noticed when he became interim chief is how far behind the patrol division was falling on some of these calls. And so he started to make some progress. Now, obviously, this week, he was crowned chief, finally, after almost a year as interim. So in fairness to him, you have to look here going forward. What is he going to do going forward? And he did give me some firm answers, which is assigning more officers that they're bringing on board to the patrol division. So beefing up the patrol officer, the count, the number of officers who are responding to calls, but also going to what he would prefer to be a year-round hiring practice as well. So when they have a number of officers leave the force, they're constantly in a hiring mode.
We're talking with Debbie Dujanovic, KSL 5 investigative reporter, about what's being called as excessive wait times for patrol officers if you've been in an accident, if you've reported a suspicious vehicle. So it doesn't sound like this is a matter of tax dollars. Is it a
allocations?
Is it?
How
Okay.
are they allocating the resources that they do have? Because other departments that we sampled around the country seem to be putting more of an emphasis, a larger percentage of officers in patrol. Salt Lake City right now assigns 30% of its officers to
Okay.
patrol. UPD, 52%.
Big difference.
We call Laredo, Texas, 63%. So, yes, it is not a question. You're correct. I don't believe it's a question of, well, do we have enough officers? How many special units do you have? How many detectives do you have? And do you have so much backlog? And so the wait times are so long that you at some point need to say, okay, we need to shift more resources toward the patrol division.
Is this a matter of just growing pains, or is a matter of in the past, like you compare to some of these other jurisdictions, they may have a much higher crime rate, right? So they may have a much higher need for officers on patrol. Is this really just the result of we've really kind of changed
I think it's
over
cultural.
the past few years?
I
Yeah?
think it's more cultural for the Salt Lake City Police Department. They've prided themselves on a number of special units. They do a very good job with what they've done over the years. But I do think they need to make a cultural, potentially make a cultural mind shift toward understanding that no longer people just don't have the ability to wait around for 5, 6, 7 hours, 14 hours. You
goodness, yeah.
can't allow the criminals to continue to get the upper hand. And on top of that, people want to feel safe in their communities. And if you have patrol officers who are running from call to call to call just to respond to suspicious vehicles or suspicious people or thefts in neighborhoods, when are they patrolling? When are they watching out for crime? When are they? When do
not.
they have time to stop,
They're
knock
not.
on your door, and say, "Jay, you forgot to put your garage door
Yeah,
down"?
they're not.
When are they looking out for suspicious people themselves in neighborhoods and being able to prevent crime? When I talked to the chief of police, Mike Brown, he said that is the one thing he wants to do is get the staffing levels to a point where these patrol officers can spend about a third of their shift on duty actually proactively patrolling. For criminal
Okay.
activity to prevent crime, as opposed to always reacting to crime.
And that's always the balance of any police department, right? I mean, people say police officers are out there to stop crime, and I've kind of felt, well, because of the fact that we can't fund them the way we want to, they've really become reactionary in a lot of ways. It would be nice to have a department that is able to do that, but I felt like maybe we're not willing to pony up to make that happen.
Well, the other thing I think you have to look at, too, is the patrol officer, if they're going from call to call to call to call. I mean, at some point, that's kind of a drag of a job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Chief Brown and I talked about that. I said, that sounds like a kind of a miserable existence after a while. I think law enforcement officers, having, known so many of them for so many years and being married to one, I mean, part of the excitement of the job or what keeps them going is the ability to prevent crime and to help people and offer the public service that the public expects.
So, but in your opinion, it sounds like they're going in the right direction here?
I think Chief Brown has some great ideas. I think he needs some time to continue to implement them. We're going to check back with them in about 6 months and see where their statistics are out and see where the balance is at and see if he's lived up to what he's told us.
What type of response have you been getting to this story? Are a lot of people complaining about wait times? Are they hopeful?
I think a lot of people, certainly people are complaining about wait times. In fact, I got a number of messages on Facebook from people as the promotion for the story started to air. And people, it's difficult for them to understand if I call in something that is so important to me.
Yeah.
I'm scared. There's somebody in my lawn or there's somebody across the street or somebody at my door. Why it's not important to somebody else. I think people should be hopeful. And I do think that there are ways you're not going to get to everybody right away, but certainly 5, 6 hours before an officer can even look at responding to that call. Plus, then you have the drive time. And if you don't have enough officers, they are driving from one end of the valley to the other to put out fires, as opposed to staying in their beat, in their area where they can get to know the community, get to know business owners, and also look for people or things that might be suspicious.
Right. Debbie Dujanovic, great story.
Thanks, Jay.
And we're glad to hear you're going to follow up on it.
I will.
And I was glad to hear the other departments they have better numbers.
Yes.
Than this.
I think it was important for us to do that comparison.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Debbie Dujanovic.
You can say it again. Go ahead.
Debbie Dujanovic.
Yeah, just like it's spelled.
I've never messed it up one time in all the times you've been on this show.
I'll forgive you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.